Governor Koster doubles down on mountain hiking ban. And Bali police begin Operation Nusa Agung 2023 today, June 21st. If you're a foreigner, they're watching you. Stay tuned for details. Selamat siang. Welcome to the latest news from Bali and Indonesia. This is June 21st, 2023, and my name is Bruce. And what is the weather like today in Bali? Another beautiful day. What can I say? Sun sparkling on the ocean. A few clouds, but not too many. 30.2 degrees Celsius. Humidity 67%. Wind speed 8.4 kilometers per hour, and it is still not raining up here. And I'm going to have a segment on the weather later on in this video. So stay tuned. And I hope wherever you are, the weather is better than what I've been hearing from Australians telling me about their weather. I'm sorry, I'm laughing, but it's just so beautiful here. And I know some of you are going to be here soon. And so, hey, you get to enjoy this lovely weather. This is the best time of the year to be in Bali. And so a little surprising that I'm back again. I'm doing these a little more quickly. Well, guess why? Because my granddaughter Zoe is off traveling around in Singapore and Malaysia with her other grandmother, Natsu, and her oldest brother. And so yeah, I'm here on my own, so I've got a lot of time. So I've been kind of shifting between this channel and the language channel that I've been trying to launch, and very slowly. And so some interesting stuff today. First, let's take a look at what's happening with the police and the Nusa Agung Operation 2023. Bali Police holds 2023 Nusa Agung pre-operational training, anticipating increasing violations of foreigners. Yes, they're expecting us to create more problems. The increase in the violations of the rules here by foreigners has gotten the police to start Operation Nusa Agung 2023. This is done by the Bali Regional Police, and it's anticipating violations of crimes or actions, bad actions, that will ruin the atmosphere in Bali. So this operation is done specifically with foreigners in mind. It's to keep foreigners from behaving badly, creating crimes, doing bad things, wandering around naked, all that stuff. As I've said a long time ago when this first started, I don't know, months and months and months ago, when all these reports about bules behaving badly went from 1 or 2 a week to 1 or 2 or 3 a day. And I said, this is not going to work out good for us, and it isn't. Now we have special police operations to control foreigners, and this is all of us. So if you're one of the idiots that has been wandering around naked, stealing bikes, doing illegal businesses, thanks, appreciate it. So what about Nusa Agung? That's my little rant. What about Nusa Agung? It's going to last 16 days. Starting today, Wednesday, the 21st, and will go through Thursday, July 6th. It is going to take place all over Bali. So before they started the operation, they had some pre-operation training to strengthen the implementation of the operation. And the Bali police have this on their official website. And so the investigator director said that this operation was very important to curb behavior of naughty foreigners in Bali, as well as for the safety and mutual comfort of all in Bali. Moreover, he said the behavior of foreign nationals acting in Bali, acting badly in Bali, is getting higher and has become a spotlight where it is rife that a number of foreign national behavior has become viral on social media. And we've talked about this in all the last videos. The National Police urges the public not to facilitate rogue acts by foreigners, especially those that don't go along with their visa permits, etc. They said if foreigners are behaving mischievously, they will be deported to their country of origin. And they are urging citizens, again, not to put this on social media, to contact the police or any local authorities directly. Could be immigration, could be the local police, could be your village headman, could be anybody in authority if you see some foreigners behaving badly. Now, of course, this leaves us open to the situation where people on social media today talking about this new operation said, I feel like I'm having to look over my shoulder all the time because of the idiots that are doing these kind of things. And it's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair that all of us are being considered possible criminals because of the actions of some. Are there more bad actions than there used to be? There's no telling. We don't have any statistics on it. Are there more deportations? Yes, definitely. There are more deportations. That's clear. Talking to immigration or reading immigration's websites and their press releases, more people are being deported because more people are being found out because of social media. Does that mean that more behavior, more bad behavior is occurring now than in the past? There's no telling. But this all fits into this narrative of let's protect the cultural sanctity of Bali versus let's bring in 8 million foreigners next year or 9 million foreigners next year. Let's build another airport. More on that coming up. Authorities in Bali have not been able to decide what's going on here. On the one hand, you've got, we're going to protect the sanctity of Bali, and if foreigners don't like it, they don't have to come here. The governor said that recently. And on the other hand, you have the Minister of Tourism saying, wow, we're going to have 6.5 million this year, 7 million, 8 million next year, even more and more. And, you know, we have the biggest beach clubs in the world. Ain't that great? But we're going to protect the sanctity of the Balinese culture, and we're just looking for quality tourists. Because, well, the more tourists you get, the more quality tourists you get, right? I don't know. It's been a long time since I've taken logic in school. I'm trying to remember it and see if it corresponds in any sense with what's going on, what's coming out of the mouths of some of our favorite politicians. So be on the lookout. Make sure you're wearing your helmet. If you are a person that doesn't wear your helmet because you say, well, a helmet doesn't protect me and I don't need it, and besides, well, I want to look good on my Instagram, on my TikTok, on my YouTube, well, cops are going to be out looking for you. And so beware. Okay, next up. Many parties protest against the ban on mountain climbing in Bali. Koster says, I'll keep going. He's doubling down. He is not going to back off. It doesn't make any difference how many people are complaining about this. He is going to go for this ban. Is the official document done yet? No, it is not. There is no official document yet that bans climbing on the mountains in Bali. And we'll talk about this in the next segment and see what the Minister of Tourism has to say. But let's see what the governor has to say. The governor said, regarding the ban on mountain climbing, I've conducted a comprehensive study. And also, it's busy with social media regarding this climb and why is it going to happen and am I going to enforce it? He said, yes, this policy was not made months ago. He said, in fact, he planned to make this policy even before he became governor of Bali. Yes, he's been thinking way back then, when I get to be governor, I'm going to have this policy to ban hiking and trekking on the mountains in Bali. Of course, he waited until his term is almost over before he actually brought it up. I don't know what he's been doing in the past years, but now it's become important. The governor said he's studied the history of Bali, the philosophy of Bali, and human nature, and all of this has been put together and his plan, and he said now the momentum has arrived. He said we have to learn from Balinese saints, Balinese ancestors, people who are elders about how to manage nature, about the Balinese culture when Bali was created. And he said that the elders got inspiration by carrying out long spiritual processes, and the processes were carried out through places which, according to their spiritual strength, were on mountains. So they found their inspiration about how to organize Bali in the mountains. And the mountains are believed to be holy places, as mountains are in many cultures. If you go and look at religious texts and cultural practices in all sorts of cultures, not just here in Indonesia, you can go and look in the Pacific Islands, in Melanesia, in Polynesia, and you'll find mountains have a special place in religious, spiritual practices and beliefs. So not only the mountains, but lakes, seas, and various natural elements are all sacred and need to be protected in order to protect Bali's spirituality. And the governor said that's what made it so attractive for people to come here. So the governor said they're coming here for, well, the spirituality of Bali. Couldn't have anything to do with the biggest beach clubs in the world, with cheap villas, with cheap motorbikes, with lots of food, a lot of babes, a lot of guys, sun, sea, and sex. Versus culture. I don't know. What do you think is going to win out on that? The governor said he's recorded how many foreign tourists are climbing the mountain, how many guides, how much money people are making. The governor said, we can't neglect the holy places like the mountains. We have to be solid. He said, I don't care for people with pragmatic thoughts, he said this before too, which in the long term will damage the natural order of humans and Balinese culture. He said, narrow-minded and pragmatic. I'm sorry, I think about the long term. Okay, and what about the Minister of Tourism? Pak Sandiaga Uno supports ban on mountain climbing in Bali. See the reasons. So our favorite Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy, who just may be running for vice president soon, said that he has received clearer information regarding the governor of Bali's policy regarding the ban on mountain climbing, and now he supports it. He said, I've received information that what was widely conveyed was not the governor's intention. So what the governor said, well, it was misconstrued apparently. He said the governor wants to appreciate and give an emphasis that cultural wisdom and sanctity must be maintained. And there are only a few places, mountains, which will later be regulated in local regulations in order to maintain their sanctity. The tourism minister added that he's received information after the discourse was conveyed to him by the governor of Bali that many tourists may be discouraged in their intention to go to the island of the gods because, well, they want to do hiking and trekking and not able to do it. Pak Sandiaga said, this information has reached the whole world until there are people abroad who, well, they may not come. But, he said, I was afraid at first, but then I said, wait, don't react. Let's see what the regulations are like. In other words, be patient. We'll see what happens. From the complete information obtained by Pak Sandiaga, only a few mountains, not all of them, will be regulated. And it turns out that, as stated earlier, what we are guarding is its purity, and we are very supportive of this, he said. He said there's only a few locations, of course, trekking activities and so on can be directed to locations that aren't included in the regulations that are currently being worked out by the Bali regional government. So this is the first time I've heard that only some. Previously, the governor said all of them were going to do it. Meanwhile, the head of the Bali Provincial Tourism Office, Pak Pamayun, who I've talked about many times, and was at the minister with this meeting, said that this has been an activity that has been going on for the past year, talking about all this, and he said that this comes from the holy books of the Mahabharata, and it states in these books that the mountain is sacred and needs to be protected. Following up on that, he said, it still remains to be seen what the regulations are going to be like in order to protect these sacred mountain areas. But he said what is clear is that the sacred area can indeed be used to climb the mountains for prayers and in connection with rituals. Following this, there's also climbing mountains for reforestation, and thirdly, for research or education as well. Okay, so now we're expanding this a little. Well, not from the governor, but from people who are, well, trying to help the governor. And these things will be regulated later, and the governor's still drafting the regulations to regulate the management of the mountains, because after all, the mountain is one of giving taksu of Bali, so that the majesty of the mountains will return to Bali. The Minister of Tourism is all for reforestation. He said, in my opinion, reforestation is very good. So later we can regulate the regulations that make it mandatory to plant trees and research activities for ecotourism. It will actually add value to the destination. So later these points will become added value, which we can show the world that the mountains in Bali can be climbed for trekking but we direct them to plant trees as a form of reforestation activities. So he concluded with an explanation like this: I can explain to the outside community, the tourists that is, that the focus is on quality and sustainability. Sustainability, because if we want quality tourism, we have to maintain sustainability and sanctity in a place that we glorify. Sustainability here is about preserving the environment, and we can package the tour packages in accordance with the regulations, which will be finalized by the governor of Bali. And here again, we have the juxtaposition of protecting the sanctity, the holiness of Bali with, well, we can't commercialize this once it's all done. Right? We're going to provide ecological balance. We're going to do reforestation, and then we can sell tour packages on it. And one of my favorites, it's time for a little bit of comic relief. I need some. What comic relief? The mythical airport. I think I saw a unicorn yesterday. Airport construction issues spread ahead of elections. La Nyalla's turn of president's lobbying promises. Wow, that's a terrible translation. The issue of the airport construction in North Bali has reemerged. I thought the president put it to sleep, and the governor finally put it to sleep, and Megawati put it to sleep when the president took it off of the list of national important projects that had to be done and said the airport, it's taken too long. It was supposed to be here and here and here at these points, and it's not. And so obviously not that important. And then the governor said, well, we are going to do it at some point. And then Megawati said, we don't really need it. And then the governor said, well, we're not going to do it because we've got lots of infrastructure projects, like the big toll road that's going to go down to Mengwi from Gilimanuk. And that's coming up in a minute because guess what? That's been delayed too. I like this article said the unique thing is that issues related to airports always stick out close to political events. This time it's happening before the 2024 election, of course. PT Panji Sakti, who is involved in constructing this, has planned another plan for the North Bali airport. And let's go through a little history of this, okay? This goes back, talk about the airport, goes back, I don't know, 20, 25 years. I've lost track. But at one point, it was going to be over by Kubatambahan. And then it was going to be over by Gilimanuk. And then it was going to be over by Kubatambahan again. And then it was going to be by Gilimanuk. And then the Gilimanuk things kind of blew up because there were protests about the land and people being displaced and also protecting the wildlife in the area. And so that kind of put a bonk to it. And the president said, okay, it's not important anymore. And so that was it. And it looked like, well, it was wrapped up. And for those of us that don't want the airport up here, it was, well, of course, we expected that. For those who wanted the airport up here, well, it was a disappointment, definitely. So where are the plans for this airport to be built? Guess what? They're going back to Kubatambahan again. Not far from where the governor comes from, by the way. The chairman of the Regional Representatives Council of the Republic of Indonesia, La Nyalla, paid a working visit to Bali just recently, and one of his agendas was to meet with community and traditional leaders in Buleleng, right here, regarding the airport development plan. The meeting was held at their office on the Singaraja Amlapura Road. La Nyalla was also accompanied by, guess who? Former Governor of Bali, Made Mangku Pastika. Governor Pastika was there. Well, and you know, he was big on the airport. Didn't happen. During the meeting, Nyalla heard the aspirations of the figures present, and one of them was from the head of the village, Kubudinding, where this is going to be built close to, and he said he hopes that there's going to be certainty regarding the construction of the airport because so far people have always hung up with various issues why it couldn't happen, and there was no explanation, and there's no adequate information. And he said, we just want certainty. If not, no. If so, then make it happen. Don't let our citizens become victims of false hope givers all the time. The support issue is resolved, he said. We've signed. We're just embarrassed. Why until now there's been no definite answer? The managing director of PP Bibu Panjisakti, Pak Hariwubowo, said that his party was consistent in proposing the construction of the offshore airport runway, while the land is only used as a supporting location and Aero City. So we are back to that plan again. And that plan was, and I've talked about this, I think about 3 years ago, maybe. They're going to build a runway out into the ocean. So they're going to have to do some landfill there. And the runway is going to be there. And then there's going to be kind of like shops and the terminal and all sorts of little things and some kind of Aero City on the land. And so he said, by doing this, we'll be able to get away from the problem that was originally in that area, in the Kubutambahan area, that there were a lot of temples that were going to be knocked down, have to be knocked down to build the airport. And he said, by doing this, we won't have to do this. There is no picture of this, but I'll see before I put this up, before I post this, if I can find an old photo of a drawing showing what the new airport over there on the east side of the island is supposed to look like, with the runway going out into the ocean. So not only do they have plans to do that, but the company said they're ready to invest 17 trillion rupiah into the airport. However, there's still problems with determining the location from the Ministry of Transportation, even though his party has been compiling studies for the past 9 years. He said, is it just a political commodity? This is Pak Erwanto from the company that is involved in the construction here. He said, this is the aspiration of the people. It already exists. The Minister of Transportation, well, it's already, the plans are already in the regional spatial planning document, and he said it was also in the national strategic property. So this means that it's a need. And he said, we believe that the airport is the only way we can balance the economies of North and South Bali. He said the construction of the offshore airport was appropriate because it will not disturb agricultural land, cultural sites, places of worship. And as I just mentioned, it will be a leveler for the economy up here. He said Buleleng is one of the poorest parts of Bali, one of the poorest regencies of Bali, and so this will help. Will the airport, if there is an airport up here, does that mean more people will stay up here? There's no white sand beaches up here. We don't have surf. We don't have mega beach clubs, although I'm sure that there are people that would be willing, more than willing, to put them up along the coast. We've got Lovina, Kalibukbuk, Saririt, Pamutaran, Arsani over that way, Tajakula. There are things to see up here. I love this area. In fact, at this point, I don't know if I'm ever leaving Buleleng. With all the craziness, I don't know if I ever want to leave this section of the island. But does having an airport here mean that people are going to stay here? Or are they just going to get onto the toll road, which will be built? Well, it's going to be built over there someday. What about the transportation? So there's a whole issue with infrastructure over there. Are they going to build a new road? Part of the plan originally was that they were going to put this shortcut up over the mountains through the Badugal area in order to make traffic faster. So there's a lot of questions, not just building the airport, getting the okay for the land and getting the government to say, okay, go ahead. There are other issues, infrastructure issues as well. And so building this airport fully on the beach, what he calls the beach, but it's really an offshore airport. He says this will be the third offshore airport in Asia. I didn't even know there were any offshore airports, but apparently there's one in Japan, Kansai, and Dalian in China. I have a friend in Dalian. She never told me about the offshore airport there. So he said the construction of the airport is urgent because the number of users in aviation services in the world will touch 7.38 billion people in 2038, and Indonesia will enter the top 4 positions in world travel. So we've got to have a new airport here in the North Bali. It is absolutely necessary. And he's promised to convey the request for the construction of the airport directly to President Joko. He said, I will immediately write to the president and convey it orally as well. Next week, I'll meet with him and I'll convey what the people of Bulaang want. So, stay tuned. That's all for today. I was actually planning on making a video on prepositions in English, but all this stuff came up, and so I thought, well, with the new operation, the Agung operation, probably put something out on that. Okay, I hope that you are having a great time if you're here on the island. Have a good time. Have a few bintangs. Relax, or some vodka. Thanks for viewing. Be kind to someone today. Stay safe, and I will see you next time.